What's going on, everyone? It's Mike back again, and as you can see, we have Cameron from the Mighty Blues, or as Cameron says, the Mighty Blues. How are you, Cam?
Yeah, I'm not too bad, mate. I'm not too bad. How are you?
I'm all the better for seeing you, mate. Obviously, we've been trying to get a guest a week on, so we had Sarah helping on last week, which the video smashed it in my opinion. We got a video today with yourself, which will smash it.
Hopefully.
We've got Rose from Everton Rose from next week, and also we may possibly have Mick Rathbone and Alan Myers, but we've definitely. We've definitely got Mick to a degree because apparently John's meeting him in a Starbucks on the M58. But I don't know how he's going to be able
what John does in his spare time.
Exactly, who knows? So what I wanted to do and what was important for me was to go through what changes we would want to our teams. Now, I got Cam involved in this because he's like me, he's very passionate. He loses his head on a regular basis. If you watch the team's rating video from the last game of the season against Bournemouth, you'll see not just a constructive dismantling of the entire Everton, but it was hilarious some of the points that he made about Pickford. And me and Cam are in complete agreement with Pickford. I also watched his season review of the entire players and the season ratings, and again, I pretty much agreed with all of them bar one.
Go on.
I can't remember which one it was now, but there was. It's basically one you've given a 4, and I would give a 2 to. I think it might be Pickford.
Okay. Yeah, it might be. Yeah, probably.
But we'll let you have that. We will let you have that. So, right. Obviously, I've done my team. You've done your team. I've sent you my team. You've sent me your team. They will pop up on the screen for everyone to see. So, here is Cam's team. We'll talk about Cam's first of all. So, just go through it for us a little bit, mate.
So I've tried to put this as realistic as possible, but also adding elements of what I would like to see. And we'll talk about why I've put Pickford in there in a second. But I've gone for Pickford in goal. I've gone for Dean at left back. Holgate and Keane at centre half. I've gone for Max Adams at right back. Allen and Ibrahim Sangare in the midfield, and then I've gone for Jack Grealish one side, Anthony Gordon the other, and Dominic Calvert-Lewin and Richarlison up front. So I'll start from the back then. The reason I put Jordan Pickford in there is because if I'm being 100% honest, I just don't see him being sold this summer, and there's a couple of reasons for that. One of them is because I think Everton are going to focus a lot of time on positions like central midfield, centre-back, possibly right-back, maybe even left-back now for cover for there, and another attacking player, like right wing, left wing, etc. I think prior to the lockdown, Everton had that sort of idea already, and they knew sort of at least the positions that they were going to strengthen in the summer. Obviously, Jordan Pickford's had quite a disastrous return to football after the lockdown, the mistakes he's been making, the little smirks, etc. I just don't think that Carlo Ancelotti, he's at the top of Carlo Ancelotti's list of players to sell. I also think the Jordan Pickford situation really depends on if we get a bid for him. Ultimately, if Everton don't get a team coming in for Jordan Pickford, he's not going this summer, and he'll still be number one next season. And the reason for that is so that we can eventually get somebody bidding for him and then sell him on. If Everton get a 25-30 million pound bid for Jordan Pickford, I'd sell him. I'd sell him tomorrow and go out and get another goalkeeper, but I just don't see that happening. I just don't see a team looking at Jordan Pickford and thinking, yes, he's worth 30 million pounds, let's go out and buy him, especially considering the mistakes he's been making. I was speaking to my dad about Jordan Pickford today in work, and he said he was trying to sort of construct a reason as to why he's been so poor, and he said sometimes he thinks he's thinking about the distribution of his ball before he's actually caught the ball, and he's thinking about where he's going to put it or what pass he's going to play, and then he completely forgets where the ball is and it goes over him, or it goes through his arms, or he drops it, or he makes a stupid mistake. So that's the reason why I put Jordan Pickford in there, is because, again, in an ideal world, we'd get a decent bid for him, you'd move him on, you'd bring another goalkeeper in. Now, we do need another goalkeeper this summer, obviously with Martin Stecklenburg leaving. Jonas Lersel very clearly isn't good enough, but I just don't see that being another 35 million pound goalkeeper unless we can sell Jordan Pickford. And I don't know, I'll put it to anybody, which team is going to come in with that sort of bid for Jordan Pickford. I don't know.
Yeah.
Do you want me to go through the rest of the team, or are we going to do position by position?
Yeah, let's just talk about Pickford. Firstly, I think you're spot on. And obviously, when we go through my team, and we'll go through it quite... To be fair, what we'll do is we'll go through both teams at the same time. So,
okay.
So obviously you go with Pickford. I make the other argument that I would sell him cheap, but again, I absolutely get what you're saying, and I said this in John's video with me. Who buys him? He's had a bad season. Even before this run of games after sort of lockdown and whatever, he's had a poor season. He's not been good at all. So I do get absolutely what you are saying. Now I'll just pop over to my team and just have a little look at what I went. So I went Romero, Foster, or Pope. Now a lot of people have said, why Foster? He's 36 years old or whatever. He's not good enough. Foster is going to be a cheap alternative as a number 2 goalkeeper. £2 or £3 million, but he's still good enough to challenge Jordan Pickford. So, Foster could become number 1 for a season. He could push Pickford to be a better goalkeeper. He is that sort of goalkeeper that he could be a 1 or a 2 and just could be utilised at Everton. So for me, bringing a Foster in would be great. Obviously, if Romero or Pope come in, they would be number 1. Pope is a better goalkeeper. Romero is an Argentina number 1, a Man United number 2. Arguably banging on the door at Man United because De Gea's had a similar lockdown to Jordan Pickford.
Should be in there. Should be number 1.
He should be number 1. They've obviously got the other issue that they've got Henderson on loan at Sheffield United. So, Man United are not short of good goalkeeping options. So, for Everton, I'll go with anyone but Pickford. But it's really difficult to say whether that will happen. So, anyway, I go with Romero, Foster or Pope. And I say, if Foster was going to come in, I think Foster costs us about £3 million. Yeah. Not a lot of money. So, that's the reason I go with that, folks. And obviously, both our teams will be below us. Well, you can fucking see. Right then, go into your centre forward then, because again, you've the centre back pairing's interesting, I must say.
Right, so left back, we don't have to speak too much about left back. I mean, it's self-explanatory. I think it's mad just on Luca Dean. I think it's mad how for various parts throughout the season, myself, you, John, various other Everton fans and fans on Twitter spoke about how Luca Dean wasn't having the best of seasons and how, he wasn't as good as he was last season, and he seems to have something going on, but he's still being one of our most consistent performers, and he's still being one of our better players this season, even in a season that he hasn't been as good as last time.
And he got in the Premier League team of the season based on stats.
Exactly. So that just shows how good of a player he is. And I think with Luca Dean, he's in that Richarlison category for me, where I don't know if you heard me on the Toffee Blues talk about Richarlison, where we really need to improve the rest of the team, or these players are going to look in 18 months, 12 months time and think, I don't deserve to be playing in a side that are mid-table, 12th in the Premier League. I deserve to be playing Champions League football. So the Luca Dean situation, pretty self-explanatory. I've gone for the centre-back pairing because obviously we've been linked with a lot of centre-backs, Gabriel being one of them, Todibo being another. I do see Everton bringing in another centre-back this summer, but I honestly don't see who it is. I don't think we'll bring in Gabriel, if I'm being perfectly honest with you. I think it's getting to that point now where, there was a rumour today that Manchester United were interested. There's various other clubs. Napoli have been massively interested. I think PSG were brought up. I just think Everton have fallen down that pecking order. I think our time to bring Gabriel in was when nobody was really interested in him, or nobody was really properly watching him prior to the lockdown. Obviously, we had all of the rumours that he'd already agreed personal terms. He'd come to Finch Farm, and that deal was pretty much there. And I think Everton sort of went, right, okay, well, we'll park that for a little bit, and that's there to pick up, when finances are back up and running and when everything's back to sort of semi-normal. And then in doing that, loads of other teams have sort of come in, and Champions League teams and teams in the Europa League and teams that are willing to offer him more money per week and teams that are willing to offer Leo more money. And I think the players' head's just gone totally the wrong way, the wrong way for us.
Do you think that's because obviously a lot of us, and including me, I've said it in about 3 videos in a row now, but obviously I got a lot of stick last summer for criticising brands. Baz from Toffee TV criticised me, for example. It turns out, to a degree, without blowing my own trumpet, I was right. We were not prepared for the Premier League. The players hadn't come in early enough. Are you concerned that Gabriel wasn't actually finalised and done, say, back in February or March? And essentially, the deal was done. He was guaranteed to be an Everton player when the transfer window opened because he'd already signed all the contract. Very much like Timo Werner and Wycheck at Chelsea. are we guilty yet again of being really slow for a player we've really wanted?
To an extent, yes. I think, listen, Everton have done this for years and have done it constantly throughout, especially my lifetime, is just wait on players and think, oh, well, we'll do that next week, or that'll be all right, we'll get on to that. We don't do things quickly. We never just sign a player. We never go from being linked to a player to signing a player within couple of hours or within 24 hours. It's always a weekly thing. It's always goes on for months, goes on for ages, and there's this big build up, and then we either sign the player or we don't sign the player. I think the last season things, it's interesting, isn't it? Because obviously we were all going into last season thinking, right, okay, you know, we're dangerously weak in centre back options. But I was thinking this when I was thinking about the review, the season review, that is that we none of us really had massive concerns about the midfield going into this season, and there wasn't massively anything to really look at and think, right, that's a worry. Obviously the centre back was a concern, and there was other parts of the pitch that we probably could have done better in recruiting in, but centre midfield was one we sort of looked like, no, we'll be all right there. And then we come to the end of the season and all of a sudden Mason Holgate's become, you know, the best centre back at the club, which we didn't know was going to happen at the start of the season. And we're looking back at a midfield that's absolutely atrocious. Sigurdsson's had a dreadful season. Gbamin's hardly played. Delph's been a shocking signing. Obviously Schneidlin's left the football club. Gomez has had a poor season. So it's difficult, and I think, again, if Everton were very clearly after the centre-back, then I don't see why we didn't get that deal over the line as quickly as possible. But I also think with the money that they want for him, maybe we turn around at a point and thought, actually, you know what, we're probably better using this in the midfield. Maybe Ancelotti come in and went, you know, you might be lining him up for 30 million, but if we spend 30 million on him, are we going to be able to spend on the midfield? Because, again, if we went into next season with Branthwaite, Holgate, Mina and Keane as our centre-backs, I would be... Yes, I would have liked a new centre-back, but I'll be like, yeah, okay, that'll do for now. If we go into next season with that midfield, I'll be absolutely shitting myself because it is utterly atrocious. So, yeah, I see where you're coming from to an extent, and I would have liked us to get the deal, you know, done and completed. But, again, that's why I put Mina and Keane, that's why I put Holgate and Keane as the centre-backs, because I think we're probably after the centre-back, and I think we might sign a centre-back, but I just hope it's not another panic buy situation. But I don't see it being Gabriel, I don't see it being Todibo, and I didn't just want to throw a random name in there for the sake of putting a new player, so I just put them two in there.
Fair enough. You do bring in a new right back, one that I think we both agree on, been linked heavily with Bayern Munich recently. Yeah. You go for Max Aarons at right back.
Yeah, the reason for that being is I think this is sort of the season, a little bit like a couple of seasons ago where we brought Luca Dean in and Leighton Baines has phased out the team. I think this should be the summer where we look to bring in another right back and phase Seamus Coleman out of the team. And look, you know, obviously there's discussion around John Joe Kenny and whether John Joe Kenny will be ready or not. I don't know. I haven't watched him every week in the Bundesliga. When I have watched him, he's appeared very similar to how he appeared at Everton, to be honest. Decent going forward and dangerous going forward. Scored a really good goal, but defensively he'd been caught out a couple of times, and it's not just little mistakes here and there. It's shocking positioning where he's playing players about 5 yards onside. Yeah. And if he wasn't there, you know, the player would be miles offside, and Schalke wouldn't have conceded. Obviously, Schalke have had a really, really poor end to the Bundesliga season. You know, every time I watched them, they got battered near enough every week. So I've gone for Max Aarons again. Obviously, Bayern Munich being interested, Norwich relegated. This should be another situation for me where Everton go in and go 30 million and Norwich go, yeah, we can't not accept that. We'll take that, and then we bring in the player rather than waiting and seeing, right, let's see who else is interested in this player. And then your Chelsea's, your Bayern Munich, your Cities, or your whoever comes in, and then we just go, right, we can't compete with that, so we'll just take a step back. Yeah. Make a proactive move, go in for him first. Say, make Max Aarons think, I can return to the Premier League there for a team like Everton playing under Carlo Ancelotti with aspirations. Make that be the only thought in his brain, not, well, yeah, Everton are interested in me, but so are Bayern Munich, so are City, so are Real Madrid, so are all of these teams, so I'm not even looking at Everton. Go in and make that proactive move. I think he's a player with a lot of potential, a lot of quality, and again, he's that player that would fade Seamus Coleman out of the team and sort of give him that Leighton Baines-esque role of last season. And I'm not trying to get rid of Seamus Coleman, but I just don't see Seamus Coleman playing 38 games next season. No. Because he's got injury issues, he's got fitness issues, and he can't play at the height of his game for 38 games, very similar to how Leighton Baines was 2 seasons ago when we brought in Luca Dean. But I think, you know, I've got my reservations out for John Joe Kenny. I think if we were going to bring John Joe Kenny back and he still hasn't mastered it defensively and he still struggles defensively, we may as well kept the older Sidibe, because his positioning defensively was poor as well and he got caught out far too many times. But going forward, he was half decent. We need a player that is comfortable doing both, or at least has got the potential to improve doing both. And again, I just don't know whether John Joe Kenny's good enough, and that's why I've thrown Max Adams in there. It's probably not going to happen. He'd probably cost us upwards of 50, but again, let's be proactive in these decisions rather than waiting for other teams to get involved.
Yeah, and look, that's fair. So we'll just quickly go through my team. So I've gone with Luke Dean at left back. I've gone with Mason Holgate in the centre, alongside Mancini from Roma.
Okay.
Now, I estimated that he would cost 21 million, which is about, say, 25 million euros. He may cost more. He's a centre-back that obviously Ancelotti will know of. Obviously, we've been linked with him before as well. He is a very capable centre-back, can also play at right-back. Had a decent season for Roma. He's obviously played, you know, in Europe. He's got that experience. His dad is obviously extremely well known as well. So he is a very capable centre-back. And for that to happen, and as you'll see from the transfers that I will show after, I actually fund that move by selling Michael Keane. Where he goes, I don't know. But if somebody offers me some money for Michael Keane and I actually put £20 million, Michael Keane goes, it pretty much covers the bill. Very similar to what I'm guessing you would do with John Joe Kenny and Max Aarons. You know, you said probably get 12 million or whatever for John Joe Kenny, and you'd stick the extra in for Max Aarons. So yes, it's an outlay, but we have put money towards it. So and at right back, I'll go with a player that's heavily linked with Tottenham, which I'll go with Castagne or Castine.
Okay.
He's a player that plays for Atlanta. He's chipped in with a few assists and a goal this season. He is a good, solid right back. Again, European experience, 24 years old. I reckon he would cost about £20 million, probably 22 million euros. But again, Spurs have been linked with him. Being a Premier League club, it wouldn't surprise me if it was like 30 million euros. But he's the sort of player that will get up and down the ring. His positional play is much, much better than, in my opinion, than any of the right backs we've got from what I've seen. Obviously, I've only seen him from YouTube, so I'm not the best to comment, but I certainly think he's better than what we have
at the moment,
Yeah, so let's go into midfield then. Obviously, you've got your team in front of you. What? I mean, there's a big name in there. There's a big name in there that I suspect is already done. Let's just go to him first. We'll go to Alan.
Yeah. I think obviously, listen, it's clear that Everton are after a midfielder, or for me, we should be after at least two central midfielders. Again, judging by the names that have been brought into conversation, what's not against the realms of possibility with Marcel Brands is a completely new name coming into the mix, and then us going and signing that player, and somebody that we haven't massively been linked with, and somebody that we don't know an awful lot about. But Alan is a player that very clearly is got a lot of trust from Carlo Ancelotti, played under Carlo Ancelotti at Napoli, of course, good leadership qualities, strong physical player, and for me, a player that we desperately need, leadership qualities on the pitch, somebody that'll throw a tackle in the first 5 minutes and everyone else will look and go, oh shit, I should be doing that. Somebody that if Andre Gomez loses the ball stupidly, will go in and win the ball back hard and look at him and go, you should be doing that, you should be getting your socks dirty, you should be getting involved, raising that tempo. For me, the midfield now is not only full of average players, but it's full of players that do the same job, really. They're okay on the ball, have got nice, tidy feet, but none of them want to get their socks dirty. None of them want to do the hard work. None of them want to run around. None of them want to graft, and none of them have really got the intensity or the passion, it seems at times, to want to win a game of football, whereas Alan brings that. He's got experience. I know he's 29 years old, and I know he'd probably cost a fair bit of money, but again, he's got the trust from Carlo Ancelotti, European experience, good solid player, can get about the pitch, good passing range as well, and I just think out of all of the midfielders that we've been linked with, I think he's probably the most probable player that would come in, certainly with those links to Carlo.
Yeah, absolutely spot on. You won't have seen that, but I have just let the dog out of the bedroom. So for the last 10 seconds there, you did miss me, but I trust you will continue. I mean, Alan is a good player and he is trusted by Carlo. And I think I think it's a done deal. Like, I think it's done. I think there's far too much speculation around it to say that it's not done. However, you are right with what you're saying. Marcel Brands, very often, we think a deal's done. We've agreed personal terms, and all of a sudden it turns out Everton haven't even bid. So this one seems weird because a lot of papers and a lot of media sources are saying that Everton have agreed personal terms with him, but we haven't had a bid agreed by Napoli. We already know we bid for Højbjerg. So we already know about that one. So
I think what that shows as well is that shows the relationship that he's got with Carlo Ancelotti, because that conversation, probably a little bit northerly because you're not really meant to do that, but that conversation's obviously happened between Ancelotti and Alan privately without Napoli being, involved. Well, and I assume the agreed personal terms would be like a phone call as to say, and Alan's obviously well up for it.
Yeah, well, to be fair, it's not even necessarily that, is it? Napoli can happily say, we'll agree a fee after you've sorted your deal out. If he doesn't want to join you, we won't talk about money as a waste of time. So it just depends how Napoli negotiate, but it's a very fair comment. You've gone for Sangare next to him now. This is a player that, I think's available for like 15 to 20 million euros. He's a very, very good player. He's top of the stats in a lot of stat websites that you can see. We haven't been linked with him massively, so
no.
Go on then, speak to me.
Me thought process behind this is we haven't been linked with them massively, but why we haven't been linked with them is completely beyond me. Or not really why we haven't been linked with them, because ultimately it doesn't matter what a Spanish publication says or a French journalist or somebody that's logged onto Twitter in the Mars bedroom in the Bills. Ultimately that doesn't matter. What matters is who the club are after. And if Everton aren't looking at Sangare as a player to come in and fill that midfield role, then I really don't know what we're doing. Like you mentioned, £12 million, tall, I think he's 6 foot plus, very physical, gets about the pitch, puts his foot in, decent passing range. Again, very, very similar to an Idrissa Gana-Gueye-esque player, a player that will allow Andre Gomes to do the fancy bits, a player that will allow other players to not necessarily get themselves involved because he'll be constantly running around the pitch, lots of energy, always first to a player when the player's got the ball, loads of pressure. I just think he's a really, really good footballer, and for the price, it's stupid. And I think Everton made a comment come out of Everton some form or another a few months back saying that they're not completely convinced with his ability. I'm not really sure how Everton can come out and say something like that when you look at our midfield. And again, Tom Davies has played over 100 Premier League games. Gylfi Sigurdsson's played for 3 Premier League sides over 10 years, and I'm still not completely convinced with their ability, to be honest with you. So for £12 million, what have you got to lose in a player? What have you got to lose? If you lose £12 million, you lose it. We've lost more of that on players in recent times. I think he's a very, very good player. Like I said, physical, tall, gets about the pitch, quick, on players' toes, constantly adds pressure to the team, and will intensify us and will heighten the tempo as well. And that's exactly what we need, because at the moment we're too flat and we're too slow. And I just think he's a fantastic, fantastic player.
Yep, can't argue with that. And look, I don't disagree with that. So in a holding position, so I actually go like a 4-1-3-2 formation in my team, and as you guys conceived, Cam can't. And I just stick Alan in there, and I say he's roughly going to cost 30 million. Now, to fund that move, I'm just going to talk about the transfers I make. So you've obviously seen these transfers that I make, but I say that we sell Sigurdsson for 8 million.
Yeah.
Difficult to move, but I do think 8 million is probably what it'd roughly go at. And I do think we'll probably still have to pay about 30% of his wages after he goes as well.
Yeah, wouldn't surprise me. If we can shift him for 8 million, mate, I'll be happy. I'll be happy. Sell him to West Ham, sell him to Watford, sell him to someone that have got silly money that just don't really look at players and just say, oh yeah, he's still dead boss, so you can have him for 8 million. Someone will take us off. Someone will take him off our hands.
I also sell Davis. So again, controversial. I sell Davis. I said 8 million for Davis as well.
Yeah, listen, if we had a bid for 8 million for Tom Davies, I'd sell him as well. Again, I'm not too sure whether somebody had bid for him. I think the more likely situation is probably for him to go out on loan for the season and just go and play his football somewhere else and try and improve if possible. Preferably at maybe a newly promoted side, maybe a higher championship side. And I know that sounds ridiculous for a player with a 100 Premier League cap, but it's either that or he gets sold. Yeah. And again, if we got it's mad, isn't it, with selling players, because we sit here and for me there's probably 4 Everton players that currently are signed to the football club that I wouldn't, not that I wouldn't listen to offers for, but that I would be massively hesitant to sell.
Yeah.
And obviously you've got Richarlison, you've got Calvert-Lewin, you've got Holgate, and you've got Luca Dean. Those, listen, if somebody come in with a £200 million bid for one of them, then yes, you know, I said this on Tuesday, football's a business. You sit down, you talk about it. It'd be ridiculous to not talk about it, especially with financial fair play times and that by 3. But those are the 4 players that I'd probably say, yeah, I'm not interested in listening to a bid unless it's something absolutely ridiculous. Everybody else, you know, it's like the Jordan Pickford thing, like I said before. If somebody bid for him, I wouldn't be against selling him as long as it was the right bid and it allowed us to go out and buy another goalkeeper that could come in and do a better job. Yep. Same with Alex Iwobi. If someone bid a fair price for Alex Iwobi, I'd sell him. Same with Tom Davies, same with Gylfi Sigurdsson, same with Delph. It's just getting those bids in, isn't it? And it's how many of these players that we can shift going forward. Because again, it was dead funny seeing on Twitter the other day about when obviously the Zaha situation come up and that was brought back to life, and everyone was like, why don't we just give Palace 20 million and Bernard, Delph, Iwobi and, you know, Sigurdsson? And I was like, well, Palace will probably look and go, why would we want your shite for our key player? Just because we can offer it them doesn't mean that they'd want it. So it's about, like you said, it's about shifting the players, and for most of these players, if we got a reasonable bid, I'd be happy to sell. I would, because I don't think most of them are good enough. Yeah, fair enough.
I say Besic goes for 3 million as well. He almost went for 5 last summer, so
yeah.
So Alan, both agreed on Alan. I move forward. You also move forward, but you're still sort of playing a 4-4-2, aren't you?
Yeah.
So you've got Gordon on the one side. We don't need to talk about him. We know very much about Gordon. Had a very good end to the season whenever he's played. Let's talk about the other man, because he's going to cost a lot of money, him.
Yeah, Jack Grealish I put in there. Now, this is probably another one where people will be in the comments and go, oh, shut up, you're talking shite, you don't know what you're talking about. I'm not in any way possible saying that I think Everton can sign Jack Grealish or Everton will sign the money will pay the money to sign Jack Grealish, but I would absolutely love him in this Everton team going forward. I think he's exactly what we need. He's a player with heart, he's a player with desire, he's a player with energy. And yes, he'd cost an awful lot of money, but he's still very, very young, and his output, I think, would match that. I think if you bought somebody like a Jack Grealish, again, I don't want to say you'd be guaranteed, but you'd have a very good chance of making money back on him if you were to sell him in the future. He also is a big game player. He pops up in big games. He showed that for Aston Villa, you know. Last game of the season to keep them up, he scored the goal. Game last season, and it was at the playoffs against Birmingham. He scored that goal after being punched in the back of the head by a fan. He's a big game player. He turns up at those moments, and ultimately at the moment, we don't have any players that turn up in those moments. And yes, he's probably going to go to Man United or somebody of the like, and yes, he cost a lot of money, but I'd absolutely love him. I'd love him at Everton, and I think if we were to spend 60-70 million, which is the rumour about Wilfred Zaha, why not go out and blast it on somebody like Jack Grealish? Should be much more beneficial. And just briefly on Gordon, again, we need a winger. It's quite evident. We're going to spend a lot of money in the centre of midfield. We're probably going to spend a fair bit on one of the wings. And if that's the case, play Gordon on the other wing. He's come in. He's done really, really well. And again, he already seems more dangerous than any of the current wingers we've got. We're not going to go out and sign 2 centre midfielders and 2 wingers for 20-30 million because we just won't have the money to do that. So put Gordon on the other wing and let's see what he can do with a decent season and a few a decent run of starts under his belt.
Can't argue with that. I think you're spot on. And look, the only reason Grealish is not in my side is just because I spend a lot more money than you all over the park. So I'm seeing it almost like FIFA. I stick with Richarlison on the left. And obviously the reason for that is I actually start Moise Kean in up front next season, so I stick Richarlison up front. The reason though is because it also means we could revert to 4-3-3 mid-game. So it kind of like when we're attacking we go 4-3-3, when we're defending we can go 4-4-2 or 4-1-3-2 or whatever we want to do. Carlo Ancelotti does a similar thing where he plays either 3-5-2 or 4-5-1, but actually the way he sets up is 4-4-2, and he just drops Richarlison into the left hand side when he's defending, and it makes it 5 across the middle and Dominic Calvert-Lewin up front. So that's the reason I just stick with Richarlison on the left, because very much I'd say that he'd be one of those players that would I would expect to be seeing Alan a lot more on the left, defending on the left rather than on the right, because I've given Richarlison that scope to move. In the middle of the park, I make another addition to the middle of the park, and I go either Doucoure, Brooks from Bournemouth, or Buendia from Norwich. Now, Doucoure, all of those players defeat what I usually say about centre midfielders, which is, well, about anyone, is I don't want to go and sign players from relegated teams.
Yeah.
However, all three of those players, I believe, are the standout players in those teams. You could argue with Bournemouth, you've got, Josh King, you've got Ryan Fraser, you've got Callum Wilson, and Bournemouth on paper had a lot more than a lot of the, they had a lot more than Villa, who went down.
Yeah.
They've got quality all over the park. And in my opinion, and I've criticised Eddie Howe for this, I think if Eddie Howe would have just, swallowed his pride before the 30th of June, which would have given him a couple of games to get a result, I think Bournemouth would have stayed up because he could have played Ryan Fraser. But he said no, which was a complete fuck up in my opinion.
Yeah, I agree.
So I'll go Doucoure, Brooks or Buendia. I'll go, if we sign Doucoure, I think it's 30 million. If we sign Brooks, I think it's 20 million. And if it's Buendia, I think it's 12 million. A lot of people will say, why are we looking at Norwich players? Buendia, whenever he started for Norwich, was their creative spark in the middle of the park. And he is a lot better, in my opinion, than what we've got. So,
I agree.
Yeah. On the right, I'll go Sarr from Watford. So again, I completely defeat my own object, but the reason for that is he is so much younger than Zaha, and I think he's got much more consistent end product. People will sit here and say Zaha probably gets you 5 to 10 goals a season, he'll get you a few assists, he can carry the ball, but so can Sarr in the right team. And I think he would probably be available for about 25 million as well, because Watford are going to have to cut costs from their biggest players, and Doucoure and Sarr are their biggest earners.
Yeah, spot on. I agree 100%. I think he's a very, very, very good player, very talented. Again, got lost a couple of times in that team, but the team was a side lacking creativity and lacking any real quality and movement for him. I think he'd do well in our team, certainly if he had a new midfielder next to him who's got that creativity and who's got that movement. Obviously, he'd do fantastically well with Richarlison. I really, really like him. I think he's a good player, and I'd love him at Everton.
Fair enough. And to make that happen, obviously, we've got a lot of wingers that we could sell. Iwobi, Walcott. I actually sell Bernard and Balassi. So I sell Balassi for 4 million. Bearing in mind, 3 years ago or 4 years ago, we spent £28 million on him. Jesus Christ.
Don't remind me, mate. Don't remind me.
Why didn't we sign Zaha then? That's the thing that pisses me off. We should have signed Zaha. I had that conversation with my dad today. Say again.
I had that conversation with my dad today, and he said the exact same thing. He said we should have brought Zaha in when we brought Balassi in. Because that was at the time when he was, he was really, really at the peak of his career. He was still young at that point, and he had a lot of potential and a lot of quality. Now, I think we're just looking at ridiculous amounts of money for a player that has got no reselling value, and his stats last season, 4 goals, 4 assists, similar to Bernard. So why would we spend that much money?
And I'll sell Bernard as well. So I'll sell Bernard for 10 million. I'll sell Balassi for 4. I'm not going to sit here and say I don't like Bernard, because I love him. I absolutely love Bernard. He is tricky, he's skillful, he's fairly quick on his feet. He's got that little burst of acceleration. He's got some lovely touches from the ball coming over to him. And, some of the tricks he can do to control the ball are great. But because he's got little feet, it's fine having a burst of pace, but an average-sized human can still keep up with him. So in the Premier League, he's not physical enough, and although he's quick, he's not quick enough. So for me, I sell him, but I still think he would attract a Premier League club. And the fact that he's on so much money, again, I still think we'd be paying some of his wages as well.
Yeah, there's no end product. There's not enough end product from him. You look at, again, we spoke about this, I think, last time we were on and talking about how we need more goals through basically everybody else other than Richarlison and Calvert-Lewin. And Bernard, I think, was our highest goal scorer other than those two on 3 or 4 goals or something this season. Walcott got 2. It's ridiculous. It's nowhere near good enough. You need your 2 strikers on. If you're playing a 4-4-2, let's say, for example, you need your 2 strikers on 15 minimum each a season. Then you need one of the wingers on 10, maybe another one of the wingers on 7, then a midfielder on at least 6, and then a couple of goals here and there between the defenders, or Dean might get 4, Keane might get 3, something like that. You can't have your highest goal scorer other than your 2 target men being 4 goals. It's just ridiculous, and it shows how much in danger we'd be if Dominic Calvert-Lewin or Richarlison picked up an injury. More so Richarlison, we would be in shit street at the moment.
Yeah, agreed. Yeah, I mean, I can't argue with that. I also sell, because obviously we go with players that are already at the club for our front players, but
Yeah.
so I go with Dominic Calvert-Lewin and Keane up front. Now, Dominic Calvert-Lewin, I am gonna say this because I'm gonna address the elephant in the room. Still concerns me. Now, yes, he's had a great season. He's had half a good season. Now, next season is so important to him because he can either kick on, score 15, 20 goals again and smash it, or you can go backwards. You know, we've seen it time and time again. Andy Johnson scored 21 goals at Crystal Palace. He comes to Everton and scores 10. You know, there is things that Everton have just got to make sure that they provide Dominic Calvert-Lewin with what he needs to score goals. Now, in the air, Dominic Calvert-Lewin's great, so is Richarlison. So I go with Dominic Calvert-Lewin and Moise Keane up front, and I allow Moise Keane to start as many games as he can, because every time I have seen him, I've thought he offers something different to Dominic Calvert-Lewin. And I'm not saying he's consistent, he's great, he's 20 years old. We were giving Dominic Calvert-Lewin a lot more game time when he first got into the Everton team. And for 2 years, including myself, I think you did it, I think a lot of the other fan channels did, we all wrote him off. We all said, he's not good enough, sell him back to Sheffield United. This season he proved that we might be wrong, and that's what's important, we might be. I expect Moise Keane to do the same next season. If we give him the chances, we've got to give Moise Keane the chances. And therefore, I want to see Moise Keane as much as possible next season, because the front three for Everton, on paper, could be three of the most dangerous players in the league. Quick, strong, powerful, skillful. Richarlison,
energy and passion as well.
Yeah. Dominic Calvert-Lewin, Moise Keane. If you tell me them three players at the start of the season are our three strikers, I'm absolutely fine with that. So, on the back of that, I also sell Cenk Tosun for £10 million. We may not get 10 million. He's also just been injured, so he may not leave the club at all. But for me, it's kind of irrelevant. I wouldn't have him anywhere near the starting lineup because he's bang average. He's great for Turkey, bang average for Everton. You go with the obvious Dominic Calvert-Lewin and Richarlison up front.
Yeah, the reason for that being is because I agree, and I think that Moise Keane as well deserves to be in there, you know, and deserves a run of games. I don't want to see Moise Keane coming off the bench in the last 20 minutes. I don't want to see him starting once and then not seeing him again for another 6 weeks. I want to see Moise Keane given a 10-game stretch. I want to see him given a rest for 5 and then maybe another. I'd like the three to play sort of, together, if you like, sort of one in, one out, and then maybe even Richarlison moving over to the wing if we don't manage to bring in that big name player like a Jack Grealish. It's not an issue with Moise Keane, it's more of an issue with the rest of the team, as I think he's a player that would massively benefit from a lot more creativity in this team. I think Dominic Calvert-Lewin, again, my biggest criticism with him is he tries too hard to involve himself in the game and therefore doesn't find himself in the right positions at the right time. One thing we seen with Moise Keane in the game against Bournemouth was that he found himself completely in the right place at the right time and he tapped the ball in. Sometimes with Dom, he's having to go out and collect the ball from midfield. He then turns, he's looking for somebody in the box, and I think he thinks, shit, I should be in there, but instead I've got the ball. And I can't criticise Dom too much for that, because that shows his work rate and how eager he is to get the ball and take the team forward and just how hard he works. So it's difficult because on one hand you're sort of thinking, right, okay, you need to do a little bit less of that because you need to be a little bit more selfish, you need to be in and around the box, you need to be hanging around there. But on the other hand, you know, I'm not going to sit here and put a player down for his work rate and for collecting the ball and for working his arse off, because we simply haven't got enough of them. If we had a full team of players that done that and Dominic Calvert-Lewin was coming out to pick the ball up, I'd say, no, you stay there, let them do the work. But the reality of the situation is, certainly since after the lockdown, and Dom hasn't had a good period, obviously, after the lockdown, he hasn't scored. But if Dominic Calvert-Lewin wasn't doing that dogging and running around, nobody would be. So it's not like we can say, you stand there and let everybody else do the work, because I think Calvert-Lewin knows, well, if I don't do it, nobody's going to fucking do it, and we're not going to get anything out of it. So again, it's sort of a yin and yang with that, is I think he needs to be in the right positions at the right time, and in coming out and trying to collect the ball and then turning, he's not there when he needs to be. But also, that's you can't knock his work rate for that, and especially considering he's playing with a bunch of lads who certainly that midfield half the time don't look like they want to be out there. They look like they're just picking up a wage. Again, I'd love Moise Kean to be in there, and I think if we get a player with more creativity, whether it be a centre midfielder, whether it be a winger, I think he'd flourish massively. I think he will flourish. He needs a run in the team. He doesn't need the last 20 minutes. When he comes on off the bench, I think he tries to do too much in too little time to impress. I think he thinks, right, okay, I'm going to have to try and take this person on 15 times so people look at me and go, wow, he's got a lot of quality. Against Bournemouth, he just done the basics. He held the ball up, he passed it out. He used his strength. If he could get past players, he would. If he couldn't, he'd pass it back out. He got his goal. He was man of the match by a country mile. He was fantastic. And I want to see more of those performances from him.
Yeah, I was really impressed with Moise Kean against Bournemouth because I actually thought he showed a level of maturity that we've not seen. You know, when we had Lukaku, and I actually compare Moise Kean's stature to Lukaku, you know, because big, strong, powerful, you know, highly rated, and that's why they got, you know, they're expensive young players. And I look at what he did against Bournemouth, and he was having to come deep, Moise Kean. You've just said exactly the same point with Dominic Calvert-Lewin. It's a fair point. You know, he was having to come deep, and, you know, he came deep, and there was one moment where he comes deep. He has two players in front of him, and he's got the ability to turn on the spot, chip the ball over two players, and get it straight to Walcott's feet, who delivers great ball. But because Moise Kean is not in the middle, he can't score. Richarlison's on the left or somewhere else. He's gone deeper. He's wandered off somewhere. So, you know, Moise Kean showed a level of maturity that we started to see from Romelu Lukaku when he came in. Now, I think Moise Kean is a year younger when we had Lukaku, or 2 years younger. So I'm very excited about what Moise Kean can produce next season. And look, you know, if you say to me Moise Kean gets 10 goals next season, I'll take that. If you say Moise Kean can finish on more goals than Dominic Calvert-Lewin, do you know what? As a betting man, I would take that bet, because I believe Moise Kean has the technical ability to be a much better player than Dominic Calvert-Lewin ever has. But
he's got more natural ability, and listen, we knew when Dom come in, he was a midfielder that we have moulded into a striker. And to be fair to Dominic Calvert-Lewin, for a player that isn't a natural striker, he's done very, very well. And he's learning that. We've seen, like you mentioned before, the first half of the season, we've seen Calvert-Lewin sort of figure out being in the right place at the right time. He scored that goal. I think it was against Palace, was it? At home, where Richarlison headed it on and it come off the post and he was there. Whereas 2 seasons ago, he wasn't in those positions. No. He was lost. He was moving away from the goal. Whereas more this season, we've seen him in the right place at the right time, getting those tap-ins, scoring those easy finishes, being that natural striker instinct. But, you know, strip it all away, we brought him in as a centre midfielder. He's not a natural striker, whereas somebody like Moise Kean will have grown up playing through the ranks as a striker, being in and around the box, knowing where he needs to be and what he needs to do.
Yep, spot on. And that's what Everton's about. So next season, look, obviously I've taken a lot of your time. 42-minute video. You weren't expecting this, was you?
No,
you were thinking, fuck, we should just do a live stream here. What are you doing? The reason I'm not doing a live stream is obviously the channel has been flying at the moment. We've had 350 new subscribers this month.
Jesus. Fair play.
We've had, you know, to put views in perspective, we've had 70,000 views, which, to put it in grand perspective, there's only ever been 1 month where we've, you know, well, it was before John where I hit more than this, and that was 90,000.
Fair play, mate. Fair play.
So.
Deserved.
What we've been doing is we've just trying to stage it every couple of days. So this video is recorded on Thursday. It goes out Friday. It'll go out about 3 o'clock on Friday afternoon. What do we do next season? What's the aim?
For me, listen, you know, I've been mad, just a little slightly off topic. It's been mad how many non-Everton fans and fans of other clubs that have looked and are commenting on how poorly Ancelotti's done, and I know, you know, Ancelotti's not done a good job, has he, this, that and the other. I think on the form table, Everton are 7th under Carlo Ancelotti, so if we'd have had a full season of those results and those performances, we'd have finished in a Europa League place. Now, when you think about that and you think about the sheer averageness of this team and the lack of fight and the lack of energy, that's quite a miracle. And I honestly firmly believe that under Marco Silva, we would have been in a relegation fight this season. And I think it could have even been worse than that, because this team hasn't got the fight, it hasn't got the bollocks, it hasn't got the energy, it hasn't got the urgency that you need to be in a relegation fight. I think we'd have been similar to Bournemouth, where we'd have just let our heads drop and that'd have been it. Not saying we'd have got relegated under Marco Silva, but we certainly wouldn't have won away to Watford after going 2-0 down. We wouldn't have won away to Newcastle. We wouldn't have beat Leicester a couple of weeks ago. We wouldn't have beat Sheffield United. We just wouldn't have won those games of football. What do we need to do next season? Well, this for me is the biggest transfer window in my 21 years of being an Everton fan. Yeah. It is absolutely huge. If we go into next season with, and I know this isn't gonna happen, but let's say we went into next season without signing a player in this transfer window, and the midfield three was Gomez, Sigurdsson and Davis, or Sigurdsson and Gomez, or whatever, I think we're in trouble. And I think I can only see Everton finishing between 14th and maybe 10th at a push. Again, mid-table, towards the bottom end, maybe pushing for top end of the table. But if we make the correct signings, which for me are two central midfielders, one that can get about the pitch, run around, do the hard work, and one that's got a little bit about him, a little bit of arrogance, and got a little bit of creativity about him as well. We bring in another winger, whether it be right or left, probably right, cover for the both fullbacks, of course, and then maybe a centre-half. We bring in the right players, we make the right signings, we bring in players that at the start of the career and have got something to prove, like Richarlison was when he come in, players that want to improve, players that have got a chip on the shoulder almost and want to be like, yeah, I want to prove to you that I can be the best player I can be, not players that have already been there and won everything and are thinking, right, okay, this is one final payday. I understand that it's difficult to differentiate between that, because sometimes you bring in a Gareth Barry who had been there and won everything, but he's still very, very good, very, very consistent. Sometimes you bring in a Fabian Delph who spends 90% of the season injured, the other 10% arguing with fans, and it's just purely shite. Do we need to bring in maybe a player that's got that experience and got that leadership and been there and done it? Yes, probably. And again, I think that's where the Branislav Ivanovic rumours sort of come in a couple of days ago. But we need to, mostly bring in young players that are hungry, that have got something to prove, that have got energy, that care, that have got heart, that have got fight, that have got desire, and show you Richarlison, show you Luca Dean, show you Mason Holgate that we want to go forward. We're improving this squad and we are fighting for the European place. Don't let them look at this at the end of next season and think, these aren't moving anywhere here, so I'm leaving, because then we'll be in even more of a shit show. And yeah, again, it's about recruitment, mate. It's honestly about recruitment. I'm very, very excited for next season. First full season under Carlo Ancelotti, and I think it could be a really, really good one. Obviously, I'm excited to see who Carlo Ancelotti can attract and the players that he wants to bring in, but it's difficult to say, isn't it, until we're sitting here at the end of the transfer window and we can really decide who we've brought in.
Yeah, spot on. I can't argue with that, and I think this is the biggest window. I think without putting too much pressure on Brands, because I don't want to. I've already made my feelings known about Marcel Brands. I think he's very overhyped for what he's achieved at Everton. I think he's brought in some good players. I think he completely panicked last season and spent far too much money on Iwobi, which almost defeats the object of having him in the club. This is his biggest window, and this is, this could determine whether he does get a new deal or not. I also just briefly, obviously, appreciate we are 47 minutes into this. New stadium. It looks like a spade will be going in the ground very, very shortly. Planning permission hasn't been agreed yet. However, Everton are increasingly confident that has, following government announcements that they are essentially build. And there's no issues with the Everton site, apart from Everton needing to fill it in, which I believe is going to take place. So irrespective of what gets built on it, that work can start happening now. The procedure, the planning is in place to fill in the docks and has been for years. It's just no one's done it. So you're excited, because it does look like we are, every Evertonian who has a negative view on the stadium always says, I'm not happy until that spade goes in the ground. Now, I'm not saying categorically, just because we filled in the dock, the stadium's going to happen, but I'm 99.9% sure it's going to. Are you happy?
Yeah, 100%, mate. I'm absolutely over the moon, and I think it needs to happen. Now, take away the Copite standing outside filming it with the plastic cups and the tin foil, Champions Leagues. This needs to happen, not just for Everton Football Club, but for the city. The city of Liverpool has lost so much money during this pandemic, and the economy obviously has taken a massive hit, not just in Liverpool, but nationwide. And I think this would be a massive, massive, massive boost for the city, in terms of trying to get that economy back to where it was. And it'll obviously bring in thousands more jobs. It'll bring in a lot more money, and it's brilliant for the football club as well. I never really had a doubt about the stadium, to be honest with you, which may be a little bit silly as an Everton fan, because we're Everton fans, but I never really had a doubt. I think you take away from the fact that it's an Everton stadium. Previously, when we'd been in talks to build a new stadium, it was purely for Everton, whereas I think this is obviously purely for Everton, but there's also a lot behind it in regards to how it'll improve the city, the regeneration of L4, obviously, once we move into the new stadium, the jobs that are going to be created, the housing accommodation that's going to be near the stadium, the shops, the restaurants, the hotels. There's just too many positives for the city of Liverpool for it to realistically be denied. Certainly after what's going on in the world at the moment, it would bring in far too much money for them to be able to turn around and say, you know what, no. And I'm confident, and obviously, listen, I can't wait for us to move in there. I can't wait to see it when it's done. It's just now down to the club and its contractors to get, like you said, the spade in the ground and start working now. And I think once that spade is in the ground and once there's some work being done on it, listen, Evertonians will never be 100% confident and 100% happy until they're sat in the stadium in the seat watching the footy, and even then they'll probably say, oh, we might sell it to the Echo or something to make it a stadium, to make it an arena. But I think once that procedure starts and the building obviously starts and the planning permission, which is expected by October, then I think we can really start to be happy about it then, and ultimately look forward now to when it's built, and obviously to making the most out of the last couple of years at Goodison Park. And for me, obviously the talk of the stadium is fantastic, and I really, really can't wait. But I'm just thinking about when we can get back to Goodison Park now, because obviously with there being limited time, with what's going on in the world, I know, there's much more important things, and we shouldn't be back there until it's absolutely safe to do so. But every time I drive past it, mate, I'm itching to get back. I'm absolutely itching to get back.
Yeah, and look, even for someone that doesn't drive past it every day, it guts me not being there, to be honest.
Yeah.
You already know the feeling I have about the city, and it's pathetic. But how I fill up every time I'm leaving, because I don't want to leave Liverpool. It's pathetic, really. But
No,
yeah.
not.
Okay, last thing then. Promise this is the last thing, and this is about you. What's next for the Mighty Blues? Give us some taster as to what's going on. What's your channel doing during the summer? Because I'm telling you now, you've always got a spot on the Blue Boys Network, mate, because I will fuck John off in a heartbeat.
Well, we've got loads of content coming. Obviously, we've just done a player ratings video for the entire season, like you said there. We've actually got the clip going up today. It's just uploaded now from the TOFFEE Blues live stream, where I spoke about Richarlison specifically and my thoughts on the quote that he come out with and why we shouldn't really be as worried, and it should be a wake-up call for Everton. We've got the season review on Friday, 5:15. It will be live on the channel. We'll be reviewing. I think we're going to get through half the season, basically the part in which Marco Silverman is the club, and then on Saturday afternoon, hopefully we'll be doing the second half of it. However, if we get through the majority of the first half in quick succession, we might just do it in one live stream. And then, of course, we're going to have loads of transfer talk, the Talking Rubbish Transfer Show, which is a popular one on the channel. That'll be coming back from Monday. Loads of discussions. I want to sit down myself and talk about the transfer window, talk about brands, talk about what Everton need to do, talk about realistic goals for next season. We've got loads of things coming. We may have a podcast in the works as well. That's first stages, sort of. So, we'll have to wait and see where that one goes. But yeah, we've got loads coming, still constant uploads all the way throughout the summer. And listen, it's going to be a quick summer. I think we'll, by the time we've all sat down and thought about, the transfers and stuff, with the players will be back in pre-season. It'll be all ready, gung-ho, ready to go, friendlies left, right and centre, signings left, right and centre, hopefully, and then start of the Premier League season. So it's going to be a quick one, but loads of content, and yeah, feel free to subscribe for the ride.
Absolutely, I love that. Subscribe for the ride. Yeah, guys, just a little bit about what I'm going to be doing then, just very quick. So we've got, fucking hell. We've got two guests on next week talking about transfers, Everton, life expectations, what they want next season. if Mick Rathbone could come on, and obviously Alan Moyers, we'll talk to them about their experiences with Everton. I've spoke to both of them. Mick's certainly more keen than Alan, because Alan said, yeah, I'll come on, and then didn't DM me, so we'll see about that. However, Mick's a possibility. We also potentially may have Jose Baxter on, who obviously will tell us a bit about his backstory. Jose is a friend of mine, so I'm not going to go into too much on how we're friends, but we are friends, and we talk quite a lot, especially on Instagram now, because he's in the States and it costs a fortune to text him. In terms of other stuff, so watch-alongs will be happening. We may well do a watch-along on Tuesday for the playoff final. So that would be interesting. Well, I have committed to doing a watch-along every single weekend from now on. So if it happens, it happens. And yeah, guys, I'm going to leave it there. Cam's just popped up massive on my screen, so don't know how that's happened, but we'll leave it as that. Cam, anything to say, bud?
No, mate, no. Thank you for having me on, of course. Hopefully I'll be back on soon within the next few weeks or so. And yeah, up to Toffees, and let's hope that this transfer window can match our expectations. And again, we just have to hope, don't we, at the moment? We just have to hope.
Yeah, spot on. Guys, thank you ever so much. Cam, thank you ever so much. And I'll see you Sunday for another video. Jesus, keep them coming.
To the bottom of the bottle, I've been drowning, I've been floating away.